Today's interview subject made his MTG debut in Crimson Vow. He only has 2 cards to his name, but they are memorable ones. And if a certain country could get their immigration policies in order, he'd be doing even more for future sets. Full disclosure, since I'm a resident of Innistrad, I have no reason to comment on the immigration policies of a country I do not live in. But if I was a resident of said country, all I might say, summed up in the following words, is this: come on! Regardless, the situation will fix itself because not only is today's subject a hard worker, but his artwork, which has been featured in Spectrum, is as unique as his name is. Please welcome today's guest, Fesbra. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Hey, no problem. I mean, thank you for reaching out.
So, Fesbra, where does that name come from? Because that isn't your given name, right?
No, that's a name that I pretty much invented for myself. I kind of like the separation between person and artist. I think it's kind of like healthy, and I always thought that, I don't know, Felipe Escobar was a little bit, hard to find. And I went like, oh, let's make something shorter that is kind of like has a little bit of a, I don't know, like easy to remember, kind of like branding. And I just shortened up like Felipe Escobar Bravo, like the first letters, and came up with Fesbra. That's pretty much it.
But then on your website, it says Fesbra, the art of HF Evergreen.
Yeah, I kept the nickname, the branding, because it feels like it's just something on its own. But me and my wife, when we got married, or previously, before we got married, we are thinking about like, I don't know, like making our own family name, or just like having something of our own. Because I personally, I don't feel that attached to my last name. I was thinking about like, oh, if you want, I can take your last name or something like that. I really don't mind those kind of things. If you want like a family unit instead of having like
The
the
hyphenation.
Escobars or something like that. And she wasn't really attached to her last name either. So we came up with just like inventing a new name, and Evergreen came up. She came in one day going like, like, I'm really thinking that this is a cool name, last name for us, like the Evergreens. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
So would you be legally changing it to Evergreen then for like your taxes or something?
In the future, yeah. I mean, right now I can. Apparently there's a new regulation, because back in the day you could change your name when you got married, like to anything. But now there's a
Really?
regulation that has to be either both names with, a separation in between, like Escobar Bessie, which is my wife's last name,
Mhm.
or a mix of them both, like Esco Bessie or something, which sounds horrible. But
I don't know. I mean,
but
it sounds kind of
yeah,
like,
I mean, whatever. But yeah, we wanted Evergreen, and somehow that this is not kind of like allowed now. And me personally, with my situation in this country, I'm still not a citizen.
really?
I can
Even,
only I can only change it when I gain citizenship.
oh wait, you're married to a citizen, right?
Yeah.
But how does that work? I thought that was one of the ways you could get into the system, right? Am I wrong on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more complex than that. I mean, usually we think like, oh yeah, you just married into the country, but it's just way more complicated. I mean, I don't know if you heard about the K1 visa, which is the 90-day fiance visa.
No,
Have you heard of the 90-day
I have
fiance
not. This is
show?
interesting.
Well,
So,
it's a show. It's a reality show that is made for, I think, couples that want to marry with an American person. And there's a specific visa, it's called a K1 visa, that allows you to be uh, 6 months in the country, and in the first 3 months you have to get married, hence the 90 days. And if you don't, you have to get out of the country.
and this is a show on television.
Yeah, it's a show on television. I don't know which channel it is, I can't remember, but Yeah, it's a pretty well-known show.
I mean, well, here's the thing with me in reality TV. The last thing that the only reality TV show I ever really watched was My Life on the D List with Kathy Griffin. I really just couldn't get into it. I missed the zeitgeist on that one. I know that I'm a total, freak in that sense, but just reality TV never got me going. But
Yeah, me neither, honestly. For example, like I don't watch it, I just heard about it. But yeah, it was just kind of hilarious that I'm doing the same visa and it's kind of like made into a TV show.
but
But
that's
hmm?
preposterous. So they force people to marry, and then they're probably also at the same time come at you with the whole like, well, trying to prove that it's not a sham, right? Don't they do that too to prove? Like I've heard that happening. So
Yeah,
it's like, what?
yeah,
Pick a
because that
side.
has happened before. I imagine that's the reason why there's so many steps and regulations for this, because it has happened that people get married just to come here in the US. In my case, it's not that. I just wanted to marry Rachel Lynn, my wife. She just happened to be in the US, you know.
Right.
But yeah, after the K1 visa, after those 3 months go by and you get married, you regularize your stay by applying for a green card. And that's the process that I'm in. I don't know if you remember Victor Dami Mingus, he went through the very similar thing and he was waiting without work for a while.
I mean, you know, this really chaps my ass because both like you two are like perfectly good examples of like, we want people like you to be here. You are making money. You are doing a good job at what it is that you do. You're bringing a claim to the United States and your chosen career. What's the problem? I don't get it. I don't get it. That's infuriating, and it's not how I intended to
Yeah,
start the
it's
interview. But I'm gonna call bullshit on that.
yeah, I have myself, honestly. I'm not a fan of the process. I think it's not made to be
It's stupid.
uh
That's what it sounds like. It sounds stupid.
it is kind of dumb. It's silly, you know, it's just like not, it's antiquated. I
Mm-hmm.
consider it like that. It's antiquated and it's just it's something that is not sexy enough for politicians to hold a grab on, you know.
Yeah.
There's other types of things that they care about and they put on the table in order to trade, but I don't think that uh, you know, like legal immigration is one of them.
Ugh. You know what? That's oof. Ugh. That gets me mad.
You
Just
just have
seriously.
to go through it. I mean, what are you gonna do? You know?
Exactly. Well, I mean, like, I don't, I mean, like, I feel like I'm gonna write a letter to someone. I'll write a letter to some local congressman and be
Yeah.
like,
Write
this
your
is,
congressman.
yeah, the hashtag bullshit. Open this up, sir. I have something to talk to you about. And I'm obviously very educated because I just said the word hashtag out loud. But to get it back to actually what you are acclaimed at doing is, of course, you are a artist, and most recently,
Yeah,
you are a now welcomed into the fold of the Magic the Gathering artists. But you
good job.
have quite a journey so far that led
Oof.
to it. So I think where we'll kind of start, well, because your website is like a treasure trove, but what would you
Thanks.
say? I guess we'll start with what was your first job as an artist working for an American IP?
For an American IP, it was Paisa Publishing. Yeah, I remember that well. Because it was, I think it was between my third and fourth year doing illustration as a professional artist fully. And yeah, I remember that email when Sarah Robinson, I think Sonia contacted me. And yeah, that was the first time. And I was blown away because uh, for me, Paisa Publishing was like a similar to my objective back in the day, which was Magic the Gathering. And I thought myself like, oh, this is a great way to, you know, get my foot into the professional fantasy illustration area. So, yep.
And I read that you worked under both Donato Giancola and Cynthia Shepard at one point in time during doing studies or some sort of atelier type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Donato Yancola. 2015, I took a class on Smart School, which was my biggest breakthrough as an illustrator, I may say. This is like, I mean, shout out to Smart School because honestly, if I think it's a perfect place to just like really dig in to those areas that you have questions when you've been trying so long to be an artist, to be a professional artist, and you have over the years you carry on with certain things like, I don't know if I want to get into concept art, or I don't know if I want to get into illustration. I'm kind of like in between here and there. And you go with one of these heavy hitters, which is Donato Yancola, either Greg Manches, now Cynthia Shepard. I think that she's in Smart School as well. And for 3 months, they will help you out and guide you through in a very personalized class, like free range work, whatever the project that you want to have, or if you require ideas, they can feed you some ideas, but they will be your personal art director. And that is something that is just so necessary. And it was one of my biggest breakthrough. And I met Donato Yancola and Mark Sheff by then with that. And yeah, it helped me tons.
I cannot tell you how many people that I've interviewed for Magic have referenced both of those two by name. I know that,
Yeah.
in fact, I think I've had more people that have been Donato students. Now it's incredible. It's Jarrell Threed, Eric Wilkerson, Volkan Baga. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
It's
Oh yeah.
incredible to see that, and then Cynthia Shepard, the way she's spoken of. It's incredible to see these people that are just icons of their field, but being able to be
Yeah.
available to you. So what would be something that you learned from them in your own artwork that you think has made you a better artist?
Oh wow. I think one of the main ones is storytelling and giving yourself a little bit of time to just like sit back and just think about what you're doing, and think about where you want to go, and think about the intention of the piece, and really give it some love in the shape that it's not just an image anymore. You know, like how some artists, me myself included, you know, we like to just like push out like really fast pieces that we do in the same day, and just like, oh, this is like very impulsive and artistic, and it's just like emotional, you know, and like kind of like really fast brush strokes and whatever, and just it looks really cool. But these classes and these kind of like, I would say like legendary artists in my
Oh
opinion,
yeah.
they just help you to just like chill down a little bit and sit back and look at the entire thing and treat it as a whole project, as a thing like, this is not only an image, this is a product that you're building from the ground zero up. And you have to go through all those steps and give them the love that they require in order to just like get this image at the end. And that is something that for me is just pretty much like changed the way that I painted.
And what would you say, because I'm going through your sort of biography, I do believe that, I mean, it seems clear to me that one of the pieces that probably had people at Magic paying attention was the Master Dissector piece that you did, which is really great, great
Thanks.
stuff. I mean, it certainly seems to be like a sort of a forerunner to your Magic cards, but I guess what would you say the watershed moment for you was when you were able to sort of, you had been submitting to Wizards and you didn't hear anything back, but then, so what do you think was that moment? Was it working so closely with Donato and Cynthia and showing off your skills, or was it that you had made yourself better because of it? How did that happen?
I think the biggest breakthrough in understanding, I mean, a bunch of people helped me, I mean, throughout my journey. I cannot be more grateful. And I remember every one of those persons. I feel like I keep like a very selective list of people that just like lend me a hand. And one of those people being Mark Sheff, Donato, and Cynthia Shepard, you know, a bunch of other people. And the thing is that I think the main breakthrough in my understanding of what Magic the Gathering wanted was when Mark Sheff helped me to get somebody from Wizard of the Coast to review one, like my previous portfolio that I had. And that person, which I don't know if it was a he or a she, pointed out a certain piece and went like, this is kind of like getting into, what the Magic the Gathering view or kind of like visual would be. And it was very, very harsh criticism, but it was necessary because it was trying to just like thread into the amount of stuff that I had and just really pinpoint at this is what I want, this is what we want, and not this is not necessary. I don't know why you have this is kind of like floating in here, and just really like nitpicking, which is something that's super necessary at a certain point in your career. Somebody that really tears apart your portfolio, and for whatever you want, obviously, for no reason at all. And then later on, when I went to Watts Atelier in 2018, I happened to, I think later on 2019, I happened to go to a workshop boot camp that they had, and Cynthia Shepard was there, and she also pinpointed at one image in my gallery and went like, this is very Magic the Gathering.
Which
And
one was it?
that's it. The red dragon that I have there. There's a
Okay.
red dragon that is kind of like a rook. It's very, very simple, I personally, I was kind of like a little bit dubious about her decision, but I really trust her with whatever her view was because Cynthia Shepard,
You're right.
But it's amazing how simple the core of Magic the Gathering visual, the graphic design is. It's like all mainly silhouette and high contrast and low contrasts, and juxtaposition of colors that are really well, like a limited palette, like nothing like all over the place. So it goes like in a frame like this. So you need to be very precise, but at the same time simplistic.
That's an interesting choice because I know which piece you're talking about. I would have assumed that it was the dissector or one of your more like macabre paintings, because it seemed like that is going to be, at least from what I can see so far, like that's an excellent place to put you. Anything dark that Magic needs to have done, that's certainly in your wheelhouse. But it also is fascinating because I wonder what the decision making was behind that. I wonder how do they choose that? What can you tell from a painting, and did they sort of like, did they ever give you a reason as to why they made those choices, or was it just they said this is what we want and that's what we need from you?
I think as a vocal reasoning, I don't think there's much, but there's more of an understanding of what works and what not. And they've done it for so many years that they really like have it down. So I would say that the reasoning behind it has to do with readability, like the fact that you can see a red dragon and in less than a second you understand what it's about.
Okay.
And it's a red dragon, there's a dude on top, and it's just like, it's epic, it's just, or it has like, I can perfectly distinguish the shape in less than a second. I don't have to digest it. I don't have to really get into it and nitpick in order to just tell it apart from anything else. So that, I think, and it has the right amount of detail if you want to get into it, and the right amount of contrast in order for you to just like digest it in a very easy way. So those kind of like things that are just like super basic, just tilt them into a more precise and subtle way that makes the image pop out by itself, really. Because I mean, for example, Instagram is a good example in my opinion, because
True, yeah.
people go like this, like you see an image, next, you see an image, next, and then whatever you like, it has to go immediately through your brain as understanding like, oh, this is cool. And that cool effect usually is when really like there's something, because it's also a frame like this. I mean, imagine a phone.
It's true. That's true. Good point.
So yeah, that same type of mentality applies into what Magic the Gathering, in my opinion, really like the cards or the images are very effective about.
And so had by the time, but you had been not, you had been put in one of the Spectrum books. had that happened before, or before you actually got the letter from Watsy saying, "Hey, we'd like you to come on as an artist"?
Uh, from uh, from Magic the Gathering, you mean?
Yeah, because you were
Yeah.
in Spectrum. Had you already been in Spectrum, featured in Spectrum by the time
No,
that happened?
no. I was at Watson. I thought to myself like, "Oh, you know what? I'm that same time that I was there, those 3 months that I was at the tournament in San Diego, I decided that I was going to apply for Spectrum, and I've never done something like that before, and I just gave it a shot, and I think I put like a couple of pieces, but that one made it in. Uh, and yeah, it was previous my Magic the Gathering stuff that happened.
So tell me about the letter that told you you are going to be a magic artist. What do you remember what you were doing? What was going on? Give me.
Oh yeah, it was in the middle of pandemic. I mean, it was, yeah, October. It rained. No, but it was October. I was in Chile, and I think I gave up on Magic, or not give up on Magic, but I kind of like put it in the back of my mind and stopped thinking about it so actively by kind of like March that year, like 5 months before or so. And I was like, you know what? I don't think I should just like keep on pressing this so much, because I've been doing it for so long, and it's so frustrating when you're trying to just like get to a client for so long and you get little to no feedback of what you're doing wrong. Like you don't know. It's like when you're, I have this analogy. When you're all the way back in middle school and you have a crush for somebody and you're just going after that person keeps on rejecting you and you don't know why. And the more that you try, the more that person like goes away, or like pushes away. And this anxiety, that it's just, is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Like my face is kind of like weird, or did I say something wrong? I don't know, So at a certain point, I just decided, like this is time for me to do me. I'm just gonna work on myself. I'm gonna forget about Magic the Gathering. And like a few months later, I get the letter from Cynthia Shepard. It's like, we want you to be part of Magic the Gathering. And I was like, what? I immediately contact my wife, going like, holy shit, like it happened. And we talked with Cynthia a little bit. And I mean, I talked with Cynthia a little bit and about it. And I just can't stop like saying thank you. It's just one of those like things that you expect so much from, and that suddenly comes reality. And I know that some other artists are going to be like, I mean, you know be realistic. I mean, it's not like you won an Emmy or anything like that. It's
Well,
just Magic
yeah,
the Gathering. For them it's so normal, but for me it was kind of like this thing that I've been like pursuing for so long. And
I mean, I will say that I've talked to more than a lot. I mean, many Magic the Gathering artists have the same point of view. I think that Magic is sort of it is the apex of, if you are doing fantasy art, that's something that if you are going to be I mean, hesitates, but if you're going to have any modicum of success, that's a good marker for it. It really is. It's just, that's how
yeah,
it is. It's an industry
it's a good
standard.
company.
Yeah.
And as a freelance illustrator, pretty much like since 2012, it's gonna be like my 10th year and maybe half a year now. And it, you eat so much crap during so long
Mhm.
with very bad clients, some good clients, and you learn how to appreciate the good in the bad. And Magic the Gathering really stands as one of those companies that you see and you go like, I could actually have a living from this and not be abused. Like people treat you well,
Yeah.
they pay you well. It's almost unreal from all the mistreatment that you get from a career of freelancing. I don't know from the point of view of other artists, but when you start like, I know I started in Chile, you start working with Chileans or with a community that is so little that most of them, they don't know where to go, and you kind of like going as like you're going as whatever you see, you grab, and it's just like you get such bad experiences sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
That you get discouraged for a while. It's just like you go like, am I gonna be? But always Magic the Gathering maintains itself as like this icon of like,
Hmm.
there's hope. There's
And
hope.
and there is, because you know what's so interesting is that I've heard from other artists that have said that it wasn't even that they were giving them something that was not that is not something that they weren't interested in. It's just like it would happen to be submitted at a time where it didn't make it on the right set of eyes at the right second. And because there are so many people, so many pieces, so many things coming in at a time, that people are overlooked when they're not necessarily being told, no thank you. And even if they've been told no thank you, I think I've heard I've heard stories where there have been multiple, like we're talking like 10 or 11 passes before the acceptance happens. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's great to see, and I love talking to people who didn't give up. And
yeah. No,
and
don't give up.
and on your website, that was a key thing that I found really admirable about everything that you wrote. You're like, I know I can get better at what I'm doing, even when you had what you considered to be something that wasn't a success, which, for me, I'm like, okay, I think it's great, but I understand that you need to be your own critic in a sense to move yourself forward.
Yeah,
There was a constant, like, I will do better and I'm going to do this. There was never
yeah.
any like giving up. So even though you might have felt privately discouraged, I don't think that you deep down would have stopped. I don't know if that is
No, this is
something you.
the hill I die on. It's just this is the one. And honestly, I think that I like that attitude of burning all your boats and just, this is the one that I'm in, and this is the one that takes me to wherever I go, because otherwise I'll be looking to the side, and I'll be always like, like thinking that maybe the grass is greener on the other side, and I don't want to have to think about that. I want to like be able to just like commit and get married to something that I
Mhm.
consider that is valuable and that makes sense with me. And yeah, I kind of like, I'm from that mentality of it's all or nothing. I'm very into dichotomies. And I like the idea, if I don't do it, nothing else. It's just,
Right. I mean, look, I mean, that's a great, I mean, look, it's goal oriented, right? You knew that
yeah, I
this
think
was
so.
the thing that you had to do and you made
Yeah.
it happen, which is so fucking cool. I mean, think about that, right? You set out
Yeah.
a goal that statistically is a very, very like lofty and difficult thing to achieve. Even if you are good, even if you are great, things can happen where it's like, if the right set of eyes don't see it, or if you don't meet the right person, but for whatever reason, and I'd say it's a combination of hard work and a little bit of luck,
Luck.
you managed to hit that marker. That's got to
Yeah.
be awesome to think about. Like, at the end of the day, that cannot
Yeah.
be taken away from you.
Yeah, and it makes the achievement so much more worth it, because it's like something that you kind of work for, but it also happened by itself. It's almost like a surprise, and I'm all into that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that I mean, you deserve it, and it's exciting. It's just you're exciting. You're an exciting person to watch. Only the
Thanks.
fucking government can get their shit together and just
Uh,
figure it out. I mean, really, if oh my God, the government. I shouldn't be talking about the government.
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah. Let's not talk about politics.
I'm gonna give myself heartburn.
Yeah.
But
Oh
yes, it's
man.
what is Blanche from the Golden Girls? She's like, yes, the government is a slow and antiquated machine. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah, pretty
is.
much. It's like a old,
It can always be better.
yeah. Well, it's farting dust now, it appears. So the, I mean, I hope I don't butcher the pronunciation, but the Endlessmorass, is it?
Yeah,
Is that the correct way to pronounce it?
The yeah, yeah. I think morass goes for swamp.
Okay, so what, I mean, because I've been on your site and I encourage people to do this. You post a lot of really in-depth stories that go with each of your pieces, which it definitely shows the writer side of you that you have
Thanks.
been nurturing, alongside being an artist. In fact, you had mentioned that you had considered being a writer over being an artist at one point in time.
Oh yeah, that I pretty much that's how I started my journey creatively. When I was a kid, I used to write, and I was like, whenever they give you in school like assignments to do, I don't know, like a short story or something for Spanish, in my case, Spanish class, I would just like go on and just like keep on writing and writing and writing. And at the point that the teacher would have to tell me like, hey, stop, I need to correct this. And I don't have enough time, in the day in order to just read your whole story. So, but I loved it. I loved the idea of like having to invent my own stories and just like, I don't know, create characters and whatnot and situations that were cool. And then I started applying, I'm also kind of goodish at drawing in my class. I was kind of like one of the good ones back in the day, when I was younger. and yeah, I started like making drawings, and somehow that caught the attention of people because, as the same thing that we were discussing before, whatever really attracts the attention the fastest is the one that you click like on. So nobody's going to read your book. And, in order for you to get motivated to be like, oh, I'm actually really good at writing, very few times you're going to have those instances. But if you create an image, people are immediately going to react about it. And that kind of captivate me, like into getting accepted into high school or whatnot, by people.
And so, what was the decision to choose the Endlessmorass, and what is the story behind it? Because it's haunting. Um, there's a lot of underlying tragedy in a lot of your pieces. What's the story that inspired that one?
Um, I was listening originally to a song. I forgot now which one was it, but it was a sonnet or some classical music piece that I found incredibly sad. And I don't know, I kind of started imagining like a situation with it. That's kind of like what I do. I love music and I get mainly inspiration by music. And I
Mhm.
started imagining scenes with it. And then you start pulling the thread on it, going like, oh, this is interesting where it goes, and I started like envisioning this purgatory type of situation where, this evil person in life died and now has to go through punishment through this endless swampy realm that they have to keep on walking through with the person or this uh, being creature that they love so much. We could be like an embodiment of their son or something like that, and it unavoidably dies, and that's the punishment over and over, and they can't find the exit out, so they have to carry it along, trying to exit it, and then they restart the process again and again and again and again until years and years and years go by, and uh, really like the true love that they feel for this person or thing comes up as redemption, and they are allowed to come back to life or
Is
something
that
like
the
that.
feather then? Is the feather the redemption that's happening?
Yeah, for me it was kind of like, I don't know, like a type of detail of maybe this is the soul of something going up or going or falling down, because it could be something that falls down, but maybe because this is such a dark piece, I was thinking maybe put something of light in it where this person is so desperate for hope and for just a shred of forgiveness that maybe at a certain point it falls from the sky or it kind of appears.
I tell you this much, if that's purgatory, I would really be frightened to see what your version of hell is, because
Yeah.
that seemed like when you're telling me, I'm like, that seems like hell to me, but you know, I'd love to actually then see what your version of it. I mean, you've done some sort of like hints at it, but my God, that person must have done something bad, because that's brutal. But you know what, it was like it was bringing me down until until I realized
Thanks.
though, honestly, what is interesting is the fact that you made the feather a focal point, that there's light coming down shining on the sadness. There's something about it, to me, it's, I don't know if you've ever seen Angels in America, but
No, I haven't.
it's a play about AIDS in the 1980s with the gay community, and it's an incredible play. And there's one of the guys is dying from AIDS, and he has these, I'm not sure if it's a hallucination or if it's a real thing, that an angel from heaven comes down to visit him. So
Wow.
there's a kind of I saw that happening there, but I kind of got an Angels in America vibe. It's interesting the way that people are, you know, that they put their own versions of it. And I know that some artists
Yeah.
don't like to discuss what they meant when they did something. I love to know, because like I said before, I have my version of what I think is happening, and that can't change. It's the same way when you listen to music or view a piece of art or whatever, you know
Yeah.
what your take on it is.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about it all, you know, is that even though that you have a version, or you created a piece with a certain objective, the idea that it can just like expand on the subconscious of other people, like in such a viral way, where it's just everybody has their own interpretation of it. I think it makes a piece more successful than not, because the idea is that you want to start a conversation over a point that is fundamental or essential into the piece. That's something that you were wondering about, or you really wanted to capture a certain type of either feeling or idea, and you put it inside of the piece. If that shines through and not the particulars around it, I think that that's a successful piece.
Yeah, that would be my grading for it, because if somebody is invested enough to create their own narrative, then that's it. You almost want that to be the case, because if it's good art, then it's no longer owned by you the second you put it out into the world. I mean, in a sense that you do not, yes, you are the one who made it, but you no longer own it. It's now owned by everyone, and you're just sort of
Exactly.
you're there to watch the show. So kind of continuing on with the artwork, some of the choices that you made, I mean, again, the stuff that you've done is just fantastic. But
Thank you so much.
and I'm a horror buff myself, so this is all very exciting stuff to see. So like, when did you sort of, I mean, I'm not saying that you're only good at horror, but it seems like you have a real knack for just doing that stuff that's pretty gruesome, like Diane Divine, the monster, or Diane Divine monster lady. She's the one who's sort of transforming inside of her mansion as into a sort of a Cthulhu slash.
Oh, that, yeah, that actually was a commission by Fantasy Flight for their game Arkham Asylum, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Or Arkham Horror Asylum, I guess. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
I think it's Arkham Horror, and also
Yeah.
was that where the Cthulhu came from?
Yeah.
Cthulhu. I can never pronounce it.
Yeah, it's a sort of Lovecraftian oriented game. So yeah, they commissioned me to do this 1920s lady that was going crazy and just transforming to this hideous monster or eldritch abomination, and she had like this pendant on. Like those were and they gave me like a specific type of lady too, because apparently that's a character inside of the game, apparently. So I didn't know much in general, like they just give me directions and I just went with it. Not one of my favorite pieces, but I
Really?
just put it out there because I thought like it was kind of fun.
Yeah, you see, that's
I had fun
interesting.
with it.
You say that too about that portrait you did of Liliana, which you were like, I don't really like it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, Sucks for you, I guess.
Yeah, I'm my worst critic.
But also, and again, I hate to just, I mean, just gonna sort of list off, but there's so many good ones. The dead creature, it's I guess it's a bird fish sort of thing. And it's there's all these like white like fairies maybe flying around it, and I didn't look dead to me, but I guess it does
Oh
look dead.
yeah, yeah.
Where do these things come from? What's happening? Where do you dream like these things? And if you do, does your wife have to like wake you up from screaming in terror when you have these dreams? Because these are fucking intense.
Hey, thanks. No, I think I remember that piece very well. I think I liked it because of the amount of rendering that I put into it. It was one of my first pieces that I started by just noodling the head or a certain stupid expression, and I filled it with teeth, and then I started doing everything else, and it became kind of like a painting. So it in my opinion is not like a very successful piece because it wasn't like envisioned from ground up. It was just an accident, and a happy accident, you may say. But um, it's just I feel like I just pulled a thread. I encounter something that I'm accidentally that I really like, and over those elements I just start pulling, and then the entire hairball comes out. It's just like, you got something here and it takes you somewhere else. And from there you go here, and from there you go there. And suddenly you have this piece. I mean, it's not as easy as that. There's more process to it, but of course that's a basis.
That's still a fascinating like and very fruitful way of having accidents. The accidents that I have generally include letting out wind when I don't intend to. So that's not going to get me into
Me too.
Spectrum. I mean, who knows, maybe I'll Jackson Pollock, I don't know. But so I guess then, so what would be then some of your choices as your most successful pieces? What is a successful piece for the like in according to you?
In my portfolio or in my general idea?
Well, I mean, I mean, a general idea is good, but I want to know what you're like in your portfolio, what you kind of would list as your greatest hits if you had to do so.
uh I like in my portfolio, I like the painting that I did of the vampire Christine. I
Mhm.
think that was one of the first time I was in Watts too. This was like right after I ended my term. I took a photo of one of the models there, Christine,
Mhm.
and she came in with garments and everything. They had like this epic chair too there, and we took pictures with lighting and stuff like that. And I took like a really good reference of her. I can send you the picture later. I think I have it
I'd love
stored.
that. Love it.
And yeah, the and I planned it from the ground up. I remember doing the sketch first because I had this idea of this vampire or female character that was like vicious in a certain way, and but just charming too. And she was in this position of certain kind of like authority. So she has this pose of very like a very confident pose. And yeah, and I did the sketches previous, taking the references, and then from the reference, I just started building this, and it became like a very simple and direct image that I consider like one of my favorites because it was like, I don't know, I think it's more evocative of a certain type of feeling and a certain type of demeanor. When that comes through, I call it good,
It's
I guess I like it
definitely
more.
it's definitely got that vibe coming from. I mean, it is very much, there is no question that she is in control with whomever she's
Mm.
feuded with, and and yet it's also a good representation for the fact that you can do like a straightforward sort of like, if you were to be somebody who in the could be in contention for eventually doing a planeswalker, because that's sort of a unique uh ability to have as amongst artists goes, is to be able to do a planeswalker, which I think, I mean, I'm guessing that somewhere down the line it will happen for you. um
That would be great.
I think that also now, and what you may not know this, but Patchwork Crawler, people are talking a lot about it. It's like, it's immediately noticeable. I mean, it's sort of the reason why, not sort of, it was the reason I saw that, and I was like, I couldn't figure out what your name was, because the image quality it was so bad when they first came out, when they were just doing the
Oh,
previews.
when they spoil them, yeah, it's very low res.
And I'm like, and
Flim flim.
thank God finally somebody posted it, and I was just like, oh, okay, all right, I got the name. And then when I went to your website, I was just like, okay, this is great. But so the story behind Patchwork Crawler is, again, your story. I feel like you should tell it, because it's heartbreaking. It's so sad.
Yeah, well, thank you first of all. And yeah, that's one of the other pieces that I consider that I kind of like was successful. Yeah, the story behind it comes from mainly the world building guide that they deliver. That this was the first commission that I got from Wizards, and I first of all, I was blown away by the 300 plus PDF page that they deliver to every artist about the building of the set, about the world of the set. It's just mesmerizing, the amount of work that comes into, the amount of like stories that are building there, the amount of mechanics, and just like everything intertwined, the art, the concept art that comes in. It's just it's truly a work of art by itself. And then I realized the amount of work that Wizards puts on all of this. It's just incredible. And I was so blown away also by the description of many of the characters and many of the situations. And one of them was with my creature that they gave me. And they were talking about how scabs, which are these patchwork kind of like Frankenstein creations, sort of, how they somehow awaken from the first time that they're created, and they're I guess like brought to life. They awaken in the state of calm contemplation, sort of. And I thought that to be kind of sad, because I feel like if you're not coming in like a baby, like screaming, like full of life, and just like trying to take your first breath of air, and traumatized by this. It's also like very colorful, and just like I imagine that it's very bright and
Yeah, I
such.
mean,
But this is like something like this brought me kind of like a little bit of sadness, because it was kind of like, oh, I thought that I was dead, but now I'm here.
And somebody's
And
somebody's made you into a thing.
yeah, and also the idea of patchwork, which was the description of the card, which was this scab that was done with remainings or leftovers of other projects. So perhaps had like a neck with multiple ears patched into the neck, which would be incredibly horrible, or hands like as an arm in order to form it, or different types of limbs trying to do whatever they can in order to just like create the thing that they need to. And I thought also on that scene from Alien, I forgot which Alien it was, the one where Ripley discovers that she's a clone, and there's many clones in some table when she's like investigating. I think Alien 4.
Yes, that's the
like
with
that.
Winona Ryder was in that one, I believe. I think that's
I think so. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's yeah, it reminded me of that scene where it's just like the other version of Ripley that failed was there in the table going like, kill me, please, kill me. And it's just, yeah, that it pretty much like mixing those two elements. I went like, yeah, this is kind of like a character that I want to go for.
It's incredible what you put on a quote on your website. You wrote, this creature was created upon remains and discarded parts, an experiment that was not created with much love, but with a that will do type of attitude. It's not a pinnacle of craftsmanship. It is not celebrated nor considered as a positive on any way other than it's better than nothing. When I read that, I was just like, oh, right in the chest. I felt so bad for this, like this zombie horror that I officially am like, every time I see him, I'm like, oh, that poor thing. And then there's that guy standing in the corner, which I did not notice until I looked at the up close version of it, and I see that, and I'm just like, that son of a bitch. He's just
Yeah.
watching this,
He did it.
and it's just like, that's like, it's injustice. And but I love the fact that you did that. You wanted to, as in your words, you wanted to make it more than just a monster, and you wanted to
Yeah.
see that, make us able to recognize ourselves. And the sketches that you've done of it, I mean, like, it's very haunting stuff. I mean, and the
Thanks.
maquettes
I
too,
guess.
like, it's incredible. I mean, the amount of like preparation and work you put into it, it's almost like each of these things could have their own mini series.
And that's something that I'm kind of looking for, because I feel like Magic the Gathering, one of the things that what I'm really grateful on participating, in Magic the Gathering, is that they allow you freedoms to create, to be yourself, and just like within these borders, they allow you to play a whole bunch. And art directors are so incredibly happy to just see that you're having fun with it, and that you're creating, you're going beyond the expectations or the basis of. For me, it would be kind of boring if it was just related to it's just a creature, and I just like kind of like
Yeah, just sort of
part
like,
it out.
yeah, right.
Yeah. So I would feel kind of like, I've been looking forward to being Magic the Gathering for so long, and honestly, I want to give it something that it's kind of like deserves a little bit of, well, I want to give it what it deserves.
And you do, and you have, and you did the same with Blood Vial Purveyor. I mean, I love the story that you created for him. Like, you made him out to be this sort of like pompous, like, this is his moment to shine. But in the
Yeah.
grand spectrum of being a vampire, he's an errand boy. I mean, he goes and
Yeah.
picks up the blood. I mean, he's like, he goes and he picks up, it's like he's a milkman, I guess. Nothing against.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing
Yeah,
against.
he
I
kind of
guess.
like it's a middleman.
Right.
He just kind of like is in between, gathering all the offerings from the people, the blood offerings, and taking it to somebody else. So this is kind of like the only place where you're gonna see him shine. This is his element, and the other people that he deals with are just like common folk, so common people. So this is like his place where it's just like he feels above everybody. Plus he flies, so he kind of like has this stance of like, I'm above you kind of like thing,
Yeah, and he's such a turd
which is
for it too.
literal too. Yeah.
Right, because he's like, I mean, meanwhile, he's like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm taking blood
Yeah.
from anemic people who are starving to death.
Oh yeah.
Like, look who's in control. Meanwhile, he can't get his, like, Livia Voldaren doesn't know his name. Like,
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah.
she's like, he's the help, right?
Yeah.
Who is this?
Some
So
other guy.
it sort of creates another sort of level of tragedy, but sort of less, I mean, less tragedy than the Scab, because this guy, for being, he's a douche, because
Yeah.
he's creating these fancy vials to present the blood in. And I love the way you put that in. You sort of had him bringing all these different, like, ornate things to put the blood in, when in reality, it's
Yeah.
like, this is just, to be brought to the castle. It's, but
Yeah.
there's certain people like that I think in real life you meet, where you're like, oh wow, you take your job way too serious, don't you? Like,
Yeah.
there's a
This is
lot
kind
of
of like their only place where they're the boss, and then they go
oh,
back home and everybody screams at them.
right. It's sort of like those moments when you're like, it's like the gatekeepers, where it's like, why are you doing this? Why are you giving me such hell? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm powerless everywhere but here. So
Yeah, exactly.
what would you say? And I take it, like, do you play Magic, or have you played it before, or are
Oh
you?
boy. Yeah, I used to play when I was a kid, but it was very similar to that. I mean, I saw that interview that you did with Kieran Yanner, and he and I had like the same experience where I collected because the cards and the images, they look cool, and I end up being a mess of playing Magic the Gathering, and everybody beats me and everybody scams me. It's like, oh, you have that Archangel there. Can I exchange it for like 15 common cards that
Oh,
are really cool drawings? And I'll be like, yeah, sure.
you're like, excellent, yes. What do you mean? I just
Yeah,
gave away $100 card for 9 cents?
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I wasn't really that good. So that fell off pretty quick. And I think I started doing it again uh, with Gracie Lynn, with my wife, because we have a game night group that we hang out every Friday. Actually, we're gonna hang out like in 3 more hours.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and some of us play Magic the Gathering, and other people play other games too, and we watch movies and whatnot. And that's when I went like, you know what, I want to start playing again. I mean, what the heck?
Right, right. I mean, it's fun. It is legit fun. So does your wife do art as well? I mean, I don't mean to pry, but I guess I'm curious because since you brought her up, so when you would you be like, would she be coming into the art like on your page, or are you going to be the sort of the HF like in that, like, is there going to be like a combination of you more than just the namesake? Because
Uh,
I'm not sure
oh
about
no, that's she's a social worker. She's not an artist.
that. That's a tough job. That's a
Oh
tough
yeah,
job.
it is. It is. And honestly, it's amazing. I mean, it's really tough for her, but it's amazing for me to see the contrast of me when I, you know, come home bitching about like some client that wanted to change the color of the sky for no reason at all, and she has this
Right.
horrible experiences that other people are dealing with.
Yeah.
And I put it in contrast and I go like, oh yeah, maybe I'm not having such a bad day.
Yeah. You're like, maybe I should shut up about this. I probably.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Champagne and caviar troubles or something. It's like, oh,
What? Oh, I never heard
like
it.
when when you compare, like when you're just like, oh, I have such a tough life, and then somebody's like, my legs
Oh
fell
yeah.
off and I'm not, and I can't breathe, and you're like, but I chipped a tooth, something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so that's I mean, that's quite a dual sort of thing. You got one person who's very much in the clouds and the other person's very much grounded. But
Oh yeah.
so then I guess then who was HF then in the Evergreen? Who is HF Evergreen?
Oh, that's my name. Hugo Felipe. My
Oh,
name is
okay.
Hugh. I think we should have started with this. My name is Hugo Felipe Escobar. That's my legal name. And the name that we want to change is Hugo Felipe Evergreen.
But then
So
so the
HF.
Google lied to me because it listed you as Felipe,
Yeah,
aka
I use my second name for a weird reason. You know, I
what?
I'm a mess. I know.
I'm like,
A lot of people ask me like, but where's the Hugo comment? Oh, it's like my dad, his name is Hugo. My granddad, his name is Hugo also. So I would be Hugo the third. And when I was a teenager growing up, I didn't like that idea so much. So I decided that, they gave me two names. I'm gonna use one of them. And yeah.
or like maybe in a few years, you're just going to sort of do what Prince did for a while, which is just making it insignia for and your name will be unpronounceable.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you say if you had to give me a few artists who would be the biggest influence on you as an artist, who would they be?
Oh yeah. The main influencers for me growing up was first of all Alan Lee with the book the fairies book that he
Mhm.
had.
That's a good one.
I had that growing up for no reason at all. I can't remember who gave it to me
Me
when I was a
too.
kid, but I just had it. It was hanging there, and I would look at it constantly, and I was just like, I loved the drawings because they were so real. Until at a certain point, I would just believe because I was a kid
Right.
when I had it, and I thought that these things that they were talking about, these gnomes and elves and whatever, they were real. And I would go through the forest like trying to find like trolls or whatever, and it really like really ramped up my imagination,
Yeah.
and it got me into fantasy like so much. And next would be Todd Lockwood. Uh, Todd Lockwood for me is an insignia artist for
Mhm.
Dungeons and Dragons. He did many of the covers, and he, in my opinion, pretty much like establish how a dragon should look like, which
Yeah.
was a huge deal for me. I mean, when you're a kid and you're into fantasy, the first thing that you go for is drawing dragons. And
Yeah.
it's just like Todd Lockwood was, yeah, like pretty up there. And then Brom, I would say Brom.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just like pretty much like all the horror and creepy stuff that I like. And later on, he shifted into writing, which is something that I was like, this is so cool. Like, I I am so inspired by that because it tells you that you can be more than just an illustrator.
yeah, your Inktober project that you did, which you sort of, instead of doing the 20 sketches or the 30 sketches of whichever, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
you made it into sort of this free-flowing graphic novel, like sort of like stream of consciousness, like story that was, it's like
yeah.
it's fascinating. I mean, that was really unique. Was that something that like I could see Brom being sort of waking that part of you up in as far as that creative side goes? So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, though. It's been great.
Hey, you're welcome, and thank you back for inviting me. It's honestly an honor.
Fesbra, look out for that name. It's going to be making waves in the future. I have a second sight for these things. Actually, I have about 14 sights. I can't use them all at once, though. It gives me a nosebleed. But you know what I've never tried before? Using only 13 at once. I mean, if a nosebleed is the worst that can happen, why not give it a shot? Ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. That's definitely worse than a nosebleed. Bye-bye!